Title: The Rise and Fall of the Ridgeview Tyrant. The morning started like any other in Ridgeview Estates, a quiet suburban neighborhood where the biggest excitement was usually Mrs. Harper's dog escaping to chase squirrels. That is, until the ground beneath my house began to tremble. I jolted awake, heart pounding, convinced the ancient water heater in my basement had finally given up the ghost in a spectacular explosion. The noise was a chaotic symphony, an earthquake wrestling with a jackhammer, shaking the walls and rattling the framed photos on my nightstand. Half asleep, I stumbled to the window, rubbing my eyes as I peered into the gray dawn. What I saw defied all logic. A construction crew swarmed my street, their orange vests glowing under the faint morning light. Heavy machinery roared as they hammered away at the asphalt, erecting what looked like a miniature mountain range. Speed bumps, but not the kind you'd expect. These were monstrous, towering at least a foot high, more like car launching ramps than anything meant to slow traffic. I blinked, once, twice, certain I was still dreaming. Who in their right mind would install something like this at 7 a.m.? In a peaceful neighborhood? Then I spotted her. Standing in the middle of the chaos, hands planted firmly on her hips, was Vanessa Caldwell, Ridgeview's self-appointed dictator and president of the Homeowners Association. Her pastel blue sweater, oversized sunglasses, and sharply bobbed blonde hair were unmistakable. She barked orders at the workers like a general commanding troops, her voice cutting through the din. "Higher," she snapped as one of the crew hesitated, eyeing the absurd height of the concrete barriers. "I want them completely undrivable." My jaw dropped. Vanessa had always been a thorn in everyone's side, issuing fines for unmowed lawns, banning backyard barbecues. But this was a new level of insanity. Before I could process it, a blur of motion caught my eye. Mr. Thompson, a grizzled war veteran who lived 2 houses down, came barreling down the street in his ancient Chevy. He didn't see the speed bump until it was too late. The impact was cinematic. His car hit the ridge at full speed, launching into the air like a stunt from an action movie. For a split second, I swear I saw daylight under all 4 tires. A muffled yell erupted from inside before the Chevy crashed back to earth, scraping its undercarriage with a sound that made my teeth ache. The driver's door flew open, and Mr. Thompson staggered out, collapsing to his knees. "My hip. My damn hip," he bellowed, shaking a fist at the sky as if cursing fate itself. Vanessa clapped her hands together, beaming. "See? It works. No more speeding." Her smugness was unbearable, a grin stretching across her face as if she'd just solved world hunger. A crowd began to gather, neighbors in bathrobes and slippers, blinking in disbelief. Moms with strollers struggled to navigate the concrete monstrosities, while kids on bikes hit them and nearly somersaulted over their handlebars. A teenager in a sleek electric car crept forward, only to wince as his bumper scraped against the bump with a nails-on-chalkboard screech. I couldn't take it anymore. Grabbing a hoodie, I stormed outside. "Vanessa, what the hell is this?" I demanded, gesturing at the chaos. She turned to me with that infuriating smile, the kind that begged for a pie to the face. "Oh, Daniel, darling, I know rules aren't your thing, but some of us care about safety. These speed bumps are a necessary addition to our lovely community." "Necessary?" I waved a hand at Mr. Thompson, still sprawled on the pavement, moaning. "You just sent an 80-year-old man airborne." She rolled her eyes. "Well, maybe if he wasn't speeding, that wouldn't have happened. It's called accountability, Daniel." A groan rippled through the crowd. We all knew what this was really about. Vanessa had a vendetta against anything she deemed disruptive: kids playing, parties, driving over 5 miles an hour. Now, she'd turned our street into a war zone. That's when I noticed it, a freshly posted sign beside the bumps. "Speed limit, 3 miles per hour. Violators will be fined by the HOA." I yanked it from the ground and waved it in her face. "You can't just make up speed limits, Vanessa. That's not how laws work." She gasped, clutching her chest like I'd insulted her ancestors. "Excuse me? I'm the president of this HOA. I absolutely can enforce these rules. If you don't like it, maybe you'd be happier somewhere else." The crowd murmured in outrage. This wasn't just about speed bumps. This was Vanessa's reign of terror escalating. But then, salvation arrived. My brother, Ethan, pulled up in his sedan. Unlike me, Ethan had a knack for handling nonsense. He was a lawyer who lived for dismantling petty tyrants like Vanessa. He stepped out, took one look at the concrete abomination, and burst out laughing. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." I gestured wildly. "Do you see this? Do you see what she's done?" Ethan adjusted his tie, grinning. "Oh, I see it. And I see about a dozen violations just standing here." He turned to Vanessa. "Where's the city permit for these?" Her smile faltered, just for a second. "Everything was properly approved," she said, waving us off. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Perfect. Then you won't mind if I look into it." She stiffened, forcing a smirk. "Be my guest. You won't find anything wrong." As we walked away, I glanced back. For the first time, Vanessa looked nervous. I turned to Ethan. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" He patted my shoulder. "Oh yeah? Let's do some digging." Something tells me Queen Vanessa didn't follow the rule book. Back at my place, Ethan wasted no time. He cracked open his laptop, fingers flying across the keys like he was unraveling a conspiracy. I paced behind him, still fuming. The image of Vanessa gloating while Mr. Thompson's car sword was seared into my mind. She thought she was untouchable, and that made her dangerous. "All right," Ethan muttered, scrolling through the HOA's online records. "Let's see what our dear president has been up to." I leaned over his shoulder, watching as he pulled up meeting minutes, financial reports, and legal documents. Ethan had a sixth sense for spotting trouble, and it didn't take long. He leaned back with a whistle. Well, look at this." He tapped the screen. I squinted. "What am I looking at?" "You're looking at Vanessa thinking she's above the law. These speed bumps. No official approval. The last HOA meeting notes don't even mention a vote." I frowned. "So she just decided this on her own?" "Oh, it gets better." He clicked another file. "City regs require permits, applications, hearings for any public road changes." Vanessa skipped every step. A grin spread across my face. She installed them illegally? Bingo. Ethan stretched his arms. "And here's the kicker. The HOA paid for them." My head snapped up. "She used our money?" "Yep. HOA funds are for the whole neighborhood's benefit, not Vanessa's pet projects. That's misuse of funds. If she didn't get approval, she could be in deep legal trouble." I laughed. "So what's the plan?" Ethan cracked his knuckles. "First, we confront her. See if she squirms. If she doesn't back down, we take it to the city." The HOA meeting that evening was packed. Word had spread fast. Everyone had a grievance. Mrs. Lopez's groceries had spilled across her driveway after hitting a bump. The Carter kid had skinned her knees falling off her bike. Even the mailman had lodged a complaint after his truck got stuck. Vanessa sat at the front, sipping tea like she wasn't public enemy number one. When Ethan and I walked in, she raised an eyebrow but stayed silent. Ethan whispered, "Watch this." He strode to the front and cleared his throat. "Vanessa, when did the HOA approve these speed bumps?" Her smile didn't waver. "Oh, Ethan, always stirring trouble. They're for safety, right? But when did the board vote?" She waved a hand. "The board and I discussed it privately. We agreed it was necessary." Ethan pulled out his phone. "Funny, the minutes don't mention it. I spoke to 2 board members. They weren't consulted." Murmurs spread. Vanessa's fingers tightened around her teacup. "The board trusts my judgment." Ethan smirked. "And the permits? Did those require swift action too?" Silence. "Excuse me. For those who don't know," Ethan said to the crowd, "altering a public road needs city approval." Vanessa didn't get it. This was illegal. The room erupted. A man shouted, "My car's wrecked for nothing." Ethan nodded. "And she used HOA funds without a vote. That's misuse of community money." People stood, pointing fingers. Vanessa's face paled, but she rallied. "This is ridiculous. They're installed. What's done is done." Ethan grinned. "Not quite. I reported this to the city this morning. They're investigating. If they find violations, consequences won't be pretty." Vanessa shot to her feet. "You had no right. Didn't I? Or were you hoping no one would call you out?" She stormed out, heels clicking like gunfire. The room descended into chaos. Ethan turned to me. "Now we wait. The city'll dig, and Vanessa'll wish she never started this." As we left, my phone buzzed, an email from the city's transportation department. An investigation had begun. Vanessa was in trouble, and this was just the start. The city moved fast. Within 48 hours, officials were in Ridgeview, measuring the speed bumps, snapping photos, and interviewing furious residents. Vanessa had miscalculated. Those bumps weren't just annoying, they were a legal nightmare. When an official knocked on my door, clipboard in hand, I knew things were about to escalate. I invited him in. Coffee. He waved it off. His name was Mr. Grayson, and he had the weary air of someone who'd seen too many HOA disasters. We've had multiple complaints about unauthorized road modifications, he said, flipping through papers. It seems the HOA president acted without approval. I nodded. She installed them overnight. No vote, no permits, no sense. Grayson sighed. This isn't the first HOA overreach we've dealt with. Problem is, removing them's a process. We issue a violation notice. She responds. If she refuses, fines pile up. Then it's a court order. I leaned forward. But they can be removed? Oh, absolutely. And if she misused funds, she could face embezzlement charges. Music to my ears. Vanessa loved control and money. Losing both would hit her hard. Right on cue, she stormed up my driveway, spotting Grayson's car. Her sunglasses were askew, her face flushed, a folder clutched tightly. I demand to know what's happening, she snapped. I saw officials measuring my speed bumps without notice. Grayson turned calmly. We're investigating unauthorized modifications. As HOA president, you should know public road changes need city approval. I was within my rights. The board supported me. The board members I spoke to say otherwise, Grayson replied. Her face twitched. She thrust the folder at him. Here's proof, they're for safety. He skimmed it. Complaints, blurry photos, scribbled notes. This isn't a permit. It's your opinions. Her nostrils flared. Removing them wastes resources. Grayson didn't blink. You've broken ordinances. These bumps are hazardous, too high, poorly built. You'll be fined $2,000 per day per bump if you don't comply. Her mouth fell open. Ethan, silent until now, chimed in. 6 bumps. That's $12,000 a day. Vanessa wheeled on him. You did this. You and Daniel are conspiring. Ethan smirked. No, you did this. We just pointed it out. The crowd in my driveway, neighbors fed up with her, relished her meltdown. Mrs. Lopez shouted. You stole our money. Mr. Thompson waved his cane. You owe me a new hip. Vanessa's face reddened. This is harassment. I did this for safety. Grayson handed her an envelope. You have 48 hours to remove them, or fines begin. She snatched it, snarling. You'll regret this. Ethan chuckled. I don't think we will. She stormed to her car, phone ringing. She answered, listened, then squeaked in horror. Ethan nudged me. That sounded like bad news. Minutes later, my phone buzzed, a screenshot of a city document. Vanessa was now under audit for HOA fund misuse. Her empire was crumbling. The next morning, Ridgeview buzzed with anticipation. Vanessa's downfall felt imminent. I was sipping coffee when Ethan strolled in, grinning. He slid his phone over, a local news headline. HOA president under investigation for fund misuse. City orders speed bump removal. I nearly choked. This made the news. Oh yeah? And a video of her HOA meltdowns gone viral. I swiped to it. Vanessa, red-faced, ranting while neighbors cheered. Comments roasted her mercilessly. She's getting what she deserves, I said. Ethan smirked. The city issued the removal order. Fines start today if she doesn't act. I texted neighbors, and soon we gathered outside, not to protest, but to watch. Vanessa pulled up, looking haggard. No smugness, just exhaustion. She ignored us, barking at the workers tearing out the bumps. Be careful. No unnecessary damage. They barely nodded. As the machinery roared, her phone rang. She hesitated, then answered. What do you mean discrepancies? Her voice climbed. I didn't misuse anything. Personal expenses? Absurd. Ethan perked up. Personal expenses? No, I don't have receipts. Why would I? A pause. You can't freeze my account. Gasps rippled through us. Her HOA funds were frozen. She was in deep. She ended the call, gripping her phone, defeated. The workers kept going. She got in her car, sat silently, then drove off. Ethan started a slow clap, and soon we were cheering. Her reign was over. That evening, as the last bump was hauled away, I got a text. You'll regret this. Vanessa. Ethan laughed. She's delusional. He showed me an update. The HOA board had voted her out for misconduct. She was finished. A week later, a for sale sign appeared in Vanessa's yard. She didn't last long. The night she moved out, we gathered, not to bid farewell, but to celebrate. Music played, laughter rang out. Ethan raised a toast. To Vanessa's next neighbors, may they be as stubborn as us. We laughed. She was gone, facing fines, audits, and legal battles. Ridgeview was free, alive again. Her tyranny had ended, and we'd won.